Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts, Tom Vassell and Sam Healy.
Alright, today we're talking about an expansion for Small World, although this is an expansion for Small World or Small World Underground. Although technically, it's probably an expansion for Small World and Small World Underground. You don't need both to play the game, but you would enjoy it more, I think, if you own both.
Probably so.
I think any diehard gamer would own both of them anyway, but we'll see. Anyway, let's take a look.
I guess I'm not a diehard gamer.
Not yet. Here's the components that you get in Small World. You have a bunch of tiles, and they're two-sided. On one side are the things from Small World. On the other side are the train types shown in Small World Underground. And these tiles fit together. If you have them on the right sides, they'll fit together nicely, like that when you put them down. And when you put them down, you'll see here I have one region, one region, one region, one region, and this becomes together and becomes one giant region. When you're putting rivers on the board, the water in the big regions, you can use these big, well, they look like super long roads from Settlers of Catan, but they will separate that. And then there's other tiles that you can place on top that show different mountains and different icons. And then there's a few other icons that are used in scenarios. And that's what this thing is. This book comes with this very big, thick scenario booklet that shows you, first of all the pieces that come in the game. And then takes you to takes you through the rules, and there are all these different languages, but it will show you a scenario, and then you will build that scenario, and then it will tell you the special rules for that scenario. So let's take a look at an example scenario. So here you see one of the boards, and this is one of the bigger boards I've used a lot. Although this still hasn't used all the tiles, I believe I still have several tiles left over, and several of the mountain tiles left over too. So this doesn't use everything, so I guess you can make a huge map. This is one of the larger map. This is a specific for 5 players. In fact, this is a team game. But I just want to show you some of the features. You can see, let's take a closer look here, that I'm using monsters from Small World Underground and people and the Lost Civilization, or the Ancient Civilization, or whatever they're called, from the original Small World. Now, do not think that you need both sets to get this. There are scenarios that use just Small World Underground or just regular Small World. So there's scenarios that work with them, but this is one that uses both of them, and that's going to be a lot of fun, especially for people who have, like I do, so many races that it takes 2 whole Plano cases to hold them all. Mostly the rules when we're playing one of these scenarios are essentially the same as Small World, although often I found that most of these scenarios will use the river rules from Small World so that you can move down the river, you just can't stay in it. They also have some suggestions in the rules on how you're supposed to build your own scenarios, how many things, what kind of theme, and then they give you some pre-built scenarios. Each of those scenarios is ranked with a star. You can see this one is 3 stars, so that's the most complex. Did I do a good job? I think I came close. But many of the scenarios also, and this is a neat thing that the game does, will have this one here specifically for 5 players. But some scenarios, for example, this scenario here, you only use certain colors depending on how many players are in a game. So if you're only using 2 players, you'd only use the pink ones. You add a 3rd player in, you add these over here. You add you add these over here. You add a 4th player in, you add the green ones. You add a 5th player, and we add these over here. And then a 6th player, you add these up here. So you can play this one with actually 6 different players. But that way the scenario itself is built that way. And then there's all different funky things that they can do. Some scenarios are very basic. Simply get to the mountains and you get extra points. Or go west, young man, and get to one side of the map and you get points. This one here all together now basically lets you mix and match. You have teams and you're mixing and matching your own special abilities going against each other. And there are tunnels that connect these two areas. If it's a small world underground race, it has to come in down here. If it's a small world race, it comes in up here. But you'll see that, like for example here, there's a number 2 tunnel, and if you do that, then you get to come out down here at this 2 tunnel, and vice versa. So that's a pretty neat thing about this specific scenario. If you don't want all that complexity, you can just throw some tiles out and play a normal game on these, and you just have to kind of do your best when you're making your own scenario to make sure there's enough of the different types of lands out there so one land doesn't predominate, unless you want a land to predominate. Another thing to note as you're changing these rules and changing these scenarios is that certain powers will change dramatically sometimes depending on what kind of map it is. A power that lets you come in on the river isn't going to do much if there's not a lot of river spaces on the map. Someone who does mountains, if there's extra mountains on the map for some instance, might be too powerful on a specific map. So you have to keep that in mind too, but that is also probably just part of the game. So that is kind of an overview of the scenario booklet. Alright, so you can see that first of all, this is a different expansion than they've done before. Most of their expansions have been just more races, a few new rules. Small World Underground was its own game, but essentially, you know, I got it because of the more races that it involves in the game. Small World Realms is going to appeal to people who like to build their own maps. It's going to appeal to people who like their own scenarios. In fact, the scenarios, I mean, this book is huge and fat. Now, that's because they put the rules for, what, 8 different languages in one book. So there is that. But the scenarios start out from being very, very simple, changing one rule, to being more complex as time goes by. So let's talk about different aspects of it. Okay, first of all, the components themselves. I really like these. The tiles, I like the fact that they didn't go with the straight hexagons.
Yeah.
And they have those curved ones. They're nice. They feel good, and they interlock together pretty well. And then there's a few tiles. Really, there's not a lot to say about the components other than there's nice tiles.
Yep.
You're almost buying the game for the tiles plus the scenario booklet.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the different scenarios in the game, and then we'll talk about who we think should get this game, or if we think you should get it at all.
Everybody.
The scenarios in the game start from the very simple to more complex. I tend to like the more complex ones because they change the game more so, while the initial ones, I almost wonder why I couldn't have just added that rule to the regular map.
Right.
You know, add some more victory points, get these mountains, do this. The more complex ones, like the one where there's one where you can shift tiles around. You can't do that with the regular board.
Right.
Or the one where you're using Small World and the regular board, and they're going back. There's some more interesting factors.
Yep.
But what's your overall impression of the gameplay?
Overall impression of gameplay is that it's not too dissimilar from the originals. So I mean, if you like Small World, you're gonna want to pick this up anyway. One of the things that I did not like about the new gameplay is that some of the scenarios, and again, it's only some of the scenarios, not all of them, they force you to come on a certain board edge, and that just seems anti-Small World to me. Because the whole thing about Small World is you come in wherever you want, but here some of the scenarios are forcing you can only come in this way, you can only come on this side and work that way, or you have to come on this side of the river or this side of the river, and it just seems kind of anti-Small World for me. Some of you guys might like it, so I just mentioned it because I didn't necessarily care for it.
Well, in those specific scenarios, it can be disadvantageous to go last, I think, more so than the other ones.
Yeah, because, and the reason is because everybody goes before you, so they've taken all of those free ranges, or free regions rather, sorry, and now the fourth player has to fight through all of those places, and it really puts the last player at a disadvantage.
Well, there's an easy fix to that. You could just give that person more victory points to start, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe, but the scenario doesn't say that.
But that's the whole point of this game, though, is that you can really mess the scenarios any way you want. You can make up anything, but if you don't have imagination,
Correct.
Which, and I don't mean it in a negative way, you can just look in the booklet, and I think there's 12 scenarios in here. There's a good chunk, and I would imagine there's going to be 200 online within a month or two.
Yeah, the scenarios are actually really cool. There are a lot of ones in there that are there's like 12 or 14 something.
I don't know. I'll count them while you talk.
We rolled a 12-sided die to see which one we picked, just to go from the random thing, but they strike a lot of different kinds of fancies. So you're gonna find scenarios that you like. You're gonna find scenarios that you don't really care for. So
Looks like there's 11.
11. Well, there you have it. But a lot of cool ideas.
One of the things that I'm going to say about this expansion is, first of all, I really like it, but I really think this is for people who are more gamers than casual. The great thing about Small World is it works well with casual gamers and it works well with experienced gamers. A casual gamer might be thrown off by the fact that there's all this setup, and if you have this, you likely have Small World and Small World Underground, and maybe one or two of the expansions. So at this point, there's races all over the place. There's new special rules. You have to build the map, which isn't something that's that quick, and it can be overwhelming. In fact, it almost feels like complex Small World now,
Right.
which is something I really like, but I don't think everyone's going to want to play.
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily dislike that aspect, but I do have to say that while we were setting up the board, I was not happy about having to wait so long to set up the board.
Oh, you know what? There's 12 scenarios. I can't count. Well, yeah, actually, I was thinking when we were setting up the board, and we were working together fast. I was saying, here, let's set up the board as quickly as we can. And even then, I thought, ooh, some people aren't going to like this because each tile, okay, put this tile out. Well, how do I rotate it? Because it could be rotated so many different ways. And the letters on the tiles aren't that distinctive. So you're saying, okay, I need tile M.
Yeah.
And you're looking through. I almost would rather just say, deal out the tiles randomly and...
And then they have kind of a funky inn on one side and
The Lord of the Rings font, I call it.
And a more normal looking inn on the other. So it's kind of strange. But it was, that's fiddly, to be sure. But there you I mean...
Okay, well, people are going to start thinking we're the negative on this to some degree.
No, we are not. Absolutely not.
I'm giving this one 2 realms up. But with the caveat that I do not think it's for the very casual Small World player. I think it's for someone who really likes the game a lot and wants to add to their experience. If I was playing with people who've never played before, I would not even bring this out. I would just play on the regular boards that are already in the game.
Cool.
With either Small World Underground or Small World. This one, though, for gamers, I don't know that I would ever play with the original board unless I was pressed for time. Because even if I wasn't going to use a scenario, I would just throw some of these tiles out and build a random board. I think.
Cult of the New!
All right. Well, what do you think?
I would. I'm just not a diehard gamer, as we said already once.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
but you usually like things more complex.
I would enjoy. That's true. I do, but I like complexity without having to sacrifice time. And so complexity here, as far as setup time is concerned, I'm sorry. The idea is that I want to be able to slap the game on the table and begin playing. When I'm done with a game, I even bag up the game so that it's easier to set up. That's what I like to do. And this one, I guess you can find a way to do that, but not having had it or owned it, I don't know how you would be able to set it up
really,
where it would set up faster.
At this point, Days of Wonder, if you're watching this, we need a Small World storage solution to put this and all the expansions in, because it's a bit unwieldy now. I'm using a box, 2 Plano containers, and this. So I got to figure out something better than that to put everything in.
So they're going to have to come out with a Small World campaign bag.
Yeah. Well, actually, their campaign bag has run out for Memoir now,
Yeah,
so
no,
I need 2. Okay, well, whatever. Anyway, so there's our review of it. Hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Cool. Hey, wait a minute.
Oh, you thumb.
I never gave mine.
All right, well, go ahead.
Trying to muscle me out there, see? I'm going to give this 2 pickaxes up.
2 pickaxes.
Yes.
Oh, you know another great thing? One of the best covers ever. I really, really enjoy the
is
cover of it.
Very good artwork.
Are we done now?
Yes, we're done.
All right.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.